Philly, thanks for coming in. You're here to tell us about your autobiography, which is called The Choice, and it's out now in all good bookstores. But before we speak about that, Philly McMahon, I have something to put to you from Now That's What I Call Sport on Sunday. Have a quick listen to this. Bring us inside the Dublin dressing room. Match day. Who's on the music and what is their music like?
You won't like me for saying this, but Philly McMahon is on the music, and he has one good song and everyone loves it, and you know everyone buzzes off that, but the rest of it is terrible, to be honest. And I tell him, he's like, what would you play? And I suppose when he asked me that, it's true, I don't know what I'd play, but Philly Mac is on decks anyway. He's DJing away. I think he focuses more on the music that's going on in the dressing room more than his warm-up, but I think he's worrying about the music in his hair, I think.
Philly McMahon, you're allowed to respond to one of your teammates, Brian Fenton there, who kind of came for you.
Yeah, he did actually, yeah. But it's a bit of banter. I suppose Fento, he sounded a bit rough there, but actually Fento can actually sing. And if you go onto YouTube, you should be able to get Brian Fenton singing. It's like a summer camp somewhere playing the guitar. So if I'm trying to get my own way back on Fento, you go and watch that. But yeah, look at Fento. What can I say about him? I can't even. If you were to ask me one question about Brian Fenton, the only thing I could say is about the size of his head,
Okay, so you have come back.
It keeps getting bigger and bigger each year,
Well, I do have a question about your saxophone upcoming, but you may as well ask it now. So apart from your Gaelic games, saxophone player and an artist, I believe.
Yeah. One year my mum asked me what did I want for Christmas, and I'm very tough to buy for. So I like house music, as Brian alluded to, and I said to my mum I'd like to get a saxophone, so she bought me a saxophone and my sister brought me lessons, and I've been practicing it ever since.
You any good?
No, I'm not. I'm alright. I'm not going to take it out now and play it anyway.
Should have brought it in, no?
Yeah,
Is it outside?
Should have brought it with me. No, look, I'll hopefully one day be able to whip it out and play it, but I'm not at that level yet.
So what's the one song that Brian Fenton says of yours is good?
I don't actually know the name of it. It's a remix that I have, but I don't know the name of it. It's I don't know, just the beat drops, and and in the moment it's a good tune. Like, so every year for some reason the lads latch on to a dance song, and that was it. I don't know the name of it. You have to ask Brian.
And there are many that he doesn't like, but because you're Philly and you're a tough guy, he just leaves you to it.
Yeah, that's what he says, but he's right in that Mick McCauley's music is very good. It's very different than what I'd have. So his music is very good for maybe after the games. But these lads know, they give you abuse about the music, but they never step up, they never put their own music on, so as he said, that's what I say, look, if you want to take my music off, put your own music on. So, and
say on the day of a huge match, like say the All-Ireland semi-final or final, when you come in from the warm-up, do you put the tunes back on? And when does Jim do a final huddle, or how does it all work, or is it just music, you're in the zone and out you go?
See, in GAA you don't come back in, so
of course,
in GAA you go
straight
out, so you do your warm-up, the music's on, you're chilling, or you're getting your heart rate up, or so I'd say it starts off with chill music, and then the beat starts to come in and you're ready to go for your warm-up outside.
Of course, but as Brian said, it's up to the players as well to be self-motivated, and if someone don't like your music, they leave their own headphones on and try and drown it out.
It's kind of like tough if they don't like my music, because it's in the warm-up area that we have it on, so they can't have their headphones on while they're actually warming up, so it's tough. They have to listen to it.
Philly McMahon, your autobiography is called The Choice. It's a fantastic read, and the back page of the book basically tells the story of the book, and you're going to just be able to bring us through it now, please.
Yeah. Playing football gave me confidence. It gave me purpose. It drew me into a world that was more than just rudderless boredom and mischief. That blue jersey became my mission. I wanted to wear it, to play in it, and I wanted people to see me in it. As my brother lost himself further down one path in life, I found what I was looking for in the opposite direction. I chose sport. What did he choose? The truth is, he never had a choice. They were all taken away from him before he realised that his life could be anything that he wanted it to be, full of endless possibilities.
Philly, the choice that you had to make and your brother John had to make, who sadly is not with us anymore, he died back in 2012. Tell me about that choice you had to make between the possibility of going down a route of drugs and the possibility of becoming what you had become as a football star, as a business owner, and as an inspiration to a lot of young people in Ballymun. Yeah,
look, I suppose in life there's opportunities that are surrounding us every day, and sometimes they become choices, and sometimes our environment actually creates choices for us. So John, growing up, you know, Ballymun had a heroin epidemic when John was growing up, and he would have hung around with the older group of guys on the blocks in Slough, and essentially he would have felt protected by that, and he would have then took smaller drugs and eventually went on to harder drugs like heroin. So ultimately, when I seen that, the pain and the pain that my family went through because of it, it kind of pushed me towards sport. So the environment actually created a choice and an opportunity for me to go a different direction.
Was that choice a difficult one for you to make? We know from the book, and we'll find out in a minute about the choices that John made and the people around him who maybe influenced his choices. But you chose a different path, and I'm sure there's a lot of your friends as well who would have, you know, chosen a life of something different to you.
Yeah, it would have been easier for me to choose the pathway of sport than it would have been to choose the pathway of drugs, because I would have seen what was going on, and I had a support network there. I suppose the first time I picked the football up was to see what John was doing on the blocks, you know. So essentially he had a part to play in me playing sport that essentially I didn't really know he had until a couple of years ago when I reflected back. So and to have the school playing mini leagues, these little things you don't really think about for kids, you know. You think, what impact do mini leagues have? Is it because it's like mini leagues in my school, in primary school, saved my life. It could essentially have saved my life not going on to drugs. And then Paddy Christie came along and he took me out of school up to Ballymun Kickham's. So, you know, it's the little things that you don't think of in life that actually make a huge difference. Like to me, picking a football and kicking it off the wall, or to me, playing in a mini league in school.
I love the photos in these autobiographies, and speaking of kicking a football, there's a photo in the book of you back at the flats. It's for a photo shoot for the book, clearly, but you're back there, and that is where your brother John was aged 14 in a lift shaft and took heroin for the first time. Yeah,
we would have thought he was a little bit older when he first took heroin, but you don't really know, because when you have a family member that's an addict, they'll be able to, I suppose, hide it for a period of time, because physically their body doesn't change that quick, like, you know. So John, again, he would have had two younger friends that would have hung around with the older lads as well, and the three of them essentially done errands for them. So he went into the story goes that his friend said that he went into the lift one day and they got in the lift with another guy, and they shut the door from the inside, and so it was essentially the lift was blocked, and the older guy took out the drugs and said, "Do you want a bit of this?" And he said, "What is it?" And he said, "H." And they took it, and walking down the road, they thought they were actually they had liquid hash. So naive, but certainly when you have that in front of your face, like what there's very little choice you have, like, you know. Yeah,
because we hear the debate all the time about drugs and alcoholics and gamblers and people who are addicted to things, and, you know, the first choice they make to take the drug for the first time, and to hear of a young boy at 14, you know, in a lift with older people, like, do you hold them responsible for his choice? Because he was old enough to know that he was taking a drug of some sort. Do you hold them responsible for that first occurrence?
Yeah, you would. You'd hold him responsible, but it's not. I don't think it's ultimately John's responsibility, because it's the second one and the third one and the fourth one. And look, when people take drugs, it's when they take the first one, the initial reaction is, sure, I'll stop it, I'll just try it. And they take the second one, and they take the third one, take the fourth one, and eventually they wake up one day and they're sick. And they go through so much pain that the only way of getting rid of the pain is taking another hit, and then you become an addict. And if you could imagine people that smoke, you know, that's a really hard addiction to get rid of, you know, to come off cigarettes. Heroin is 20 times harder to come off than it is nicotine. 20 times harder. So the dopamine release in your brain goes absolutely crazy, and it craves this little substance in your brain. So and there's no other thing, there's no other drug out there that's a heavier hit than heroin has. So you can't even go and look for something else. It's that you have to look for. And the funny thing is, we have addicts on the streets now, and a hit heroin is €20. So they'll probably have to get 3 hits a day. That's 30-40 grand a year. These people are homeless. These people are not working, and that's why they're going to commit crimes, and that's why people develop this negative stigma about them. And this is the reason why we speak so low of addicts.
And there was one stage where you didn't speak low of your brother, but you spoke and you made a speech to suggest that you were a little bit ashamed of him and you were embarrassed by him and you didn't want people to know that your brother was a heroin addict. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I suppose growing up, and I'm sure every youth is like this, that they grow up and they want to live a perfect life. They want to have a perfect family, and I didn't, and if I had the education that I have now, I wouldn't have been embarrassed when I was younger. So another reason why I'm doing this book, and another reason why I'm speaking about this, is for other people, for other kids growing up now, not to be embarrassed, to understand that this is just a loved one that's made the wrong choice. And 90% or 80% of drug addicts have had childhood mental health issues, meaning that this is a bigger health issue than we think, and yet we keep incriminating these people and incarcerating them. It's very important. The message that I'm trying to get out there now is not to be embarrassed if you have a family member that makes the wrong choice, no matter what it is. If it's addiction, if it's alcohol, if it's gambling, it doesn't even have to be addiction. It can be just that person makes the wrong decision, that you shouldn't be embarrassed. And I would always believe, I'm a firm believer in that, to be perfect you have to have imperfections.
He was aged just 14 when he took heroin for the first time. He died, Philly, when he was 31. That's 17 years from when he first took it. How quickly did things start to go bad, and how quickly did you and your family start to realise that he was in real trouble? Because there were times as well where it looked like he was going to get himself on the right road again.
When he was living in Ireland, in Dublin and Ballymun, he would have fluctuated in terms of his weight. You'd know when he was on heroin because he would have been a lot thinner, and when he was on methadone he was a lot bigger. So the recovery process that we only knew was to get him on methadone. We didn't know anything about absence-based recovery. And we certainly, if there was family support groups in Ballymun, we didn't see them. So the recovery protocol we would have looked at was get him on methadone, and then we can wean him down off methadone, and then he'd be fine. But it never really worked. And I don't think it works. Methadone works in any way, so they're going from one drug to the next, and when they go to methadone, that brain, as I said, the dopamine, the brain is still looking for a higher hit, so they take drugs on top of the methadone. So it's very dangerous, and you see the weight, the water retention they develop from the methadone. It's crazy. So he did that for a long time, and it got to the stage where certainly I would have used tough love to try get him. I would have used love as the bargaining tool to get him off drugs. If you don't get off drugs, I'm not going to speak to you. And now I know that was the wrong way to do it. Connection is the best way to do it. It's bringing them back into the family and saying, look, when you're ready, we're here to help you. And that's the way society should treat addicts as well.
You're listening to Now That's What I Call Sport on 98 FM. My name is Jamie Moore, speaking to Philly McMahon about his autobiography, which is called The Choice, which details in a lot of the book about the death of his brother John in 2012 from a drug overdose. Philly, another great photo in the book is the last Christmas you spent with John in 2011. Talk me through that time, and not soon afterwards, or not long afterwards, unfortunately, he'd passed away, and you were getting a phone call in your gym at the time to say your brother's dead in London, you need to come.
I suppose the last Christmas he was home, we all looked forward to John coming home at Christmas, and because he was the life and party of this, he was the life and soul of the party, basically, and it was, you're looking at this person and you're saying, you're struggling so much, but how do you keep this? It was kind of a brave face in many ways, and it was just great to have him around, and he always tried to make us feel at comfort, that he was okay. And then you get some warning signs that things weren't okay, and so it was great that 2011 when he came home. It was some really fond memories of him dancing with my mum and singing with my mum with karaoke and stuff like that night. And it was quite tough as well at times, because we couldn't actually let John go outside the door, because we know a person that had been away from home so long that he would have loved to see his old friends, you know, and his old friends are probably still addicts, and eventually that could have pushed him back onto heroin. So 2011, you can see in the photo that he's a lot larger than what he was in the pictures in the previous page. That's John on methadone. So he would essentially, if he went out and connected with some of his old friends, probably would have went back on heroin, which we didn't want, you know. So when he went home, I always used to throw him a few bob going home because he wasn't working over there. And I used to love doing that. I used to love throwing him a few quid, and I used to try I always used to try give him £100 though. That's what I used to do. I used to get. I'd go to the shop before the day he's going home. I'd go to the shop and I'd get money and I'd change it into €100 now, and I'd go down and I'd give it to him, because he'd always think he'd kind of go, no, I don't want it, and he'd always think that you give him like 20, 30 or 20 or €50, you know, but he wouldn't have. If you gave him 5 20s, he would have copped that. There was a lot of money, so I always used to give him €100. So then he went, so that was it. Then 2012, then he had planned on coming home for the All-Ireland. Ballymun Kickham's, it was the 2012, September 2011. We were speaking to John, and he was going to come home for the next season. He was going to come home to watch the All-Ireland if he got to it. But we never got to it. We got beaten in the semi-final against Mayo.
You mentioned there about him on heroin and him on methadone. Make the comparison for me between a loved one on heroin and a loved one on methadone, and the differences between the two, because the methadone is trying to make them better, but at times they, I'm sure, feel happier when they have their fix.
Yeah, I think they're both very similar. As I said, the physical appearance changes, and when the drug addict is on heroin, they're obviously dozing off a lot, or as it's called, goofing off. So they're kind of falling asleep, and their skin changes. You kind of get a lot of spots and sores. And then when you're on methadone, it's a lot different. They don't actually stop talking. They constantly talk, and they're constantly scratching themselves. So they're the two biggest physical things that you'd see from both different recovery. Well, one recovery and one, but methadone for me wasn't recovery. Like, you know, it wasn't. He was still on drugs in my eyes.
The book is broken into 3 main parts. The first half, when John is around, half time when John dies, and the second half from then in 2012 until now. How did the second half of your life and this book, but the story, begin when you find out he's died and you realise, okay, I now need to try and help people in Ballymun, I now need to try and help young people, I now need to try and clearly help my parents and my family to get over this, but that was a real turning point for you?
Yeah, definitely. I kind of reflected a little bit deeper in life and things started to change, but it wasn't until I actually started speaking about John that things changed massively, and that was in 2015. So 2012 I became a workaholic, like, because that was my way of dealing with it, and that was my way of grieving, like. And then because of that, the businesses started to do well because I was working really hard in them. But it was then in 2015 I spoke about John, and I seen the response from people that had connections through addiction. Maybe it's having loved ones that are addicts or being addicts themselves, and being recovered. You know, it was huge. It was a massive response. I was being asked to go to do talks, corporate companies, schools, youth clubs, sports clubs, and I just couldn't do it all the time. You know, I couldn't. So essentially, what I wanted to do was because I hadn't got the time, I needed to find balance between the components of my life, like sport, business, relationships, and then I had an add-on to that, which was charity. So I had to look for that balance, and that's what I do now. I look at them 4 areas, and I see what I'm doing and what am I achieving. Like, so I'm very lucky to be a part of a Dublin team that have won an All-Ireland again this year, and you know. That's what, for me, that's what life's about, is growth and making sure that I have balance between them 4 areas.
Philly, just a final one on John before we speak about you, the sports star as well. You were very dapper on the Late Late Show on Friday in your purple suit and your sky blue tie. I'm assuming that was
I'll give collar and cuff a plug there.
There you go. You're getting another free suit now. Yes, the choice of colour was interesting. I'm sure the blue tie was for the Dubs, was it?
It was. I had a blue suit the last time, so I said we'd go something different this time.
Yeah, very nice. But I wanted to ask you a serious question about that. And you revealed that you were on the pitch in a big game, and an opponent, in inverted commas, decided to tell you that your brother was a junkie and he had died. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I was playing a game. I can't really say which game it was, but the opponent, we were having words, and he went that low. He felt he had to go that low to put me off my game, and so he said your brother was a junkie and he died of an overdose, you know. So at that stage, for me, as I've said to you, that was the moment that I said, Jesus, John, you're actually here with me now. You know, you're not only here with me, you're here with him. And I suppose that, as I've said, empowered me to go on and to play a good game. To, you know, when you're playing a sport and them little split seconds where your brain has a little thought and says, stop, don't run, don't make that tackle, don't make that score, don't make that hit. As soon as that happened in my head, John came into my brain. So that's how it empowered me, and that's again looking at a negative and taking an opportunity from it. Yeah,
interesting you mentioned about those split second moments in your brain. What split second moment told you not to headbutt that person or punch them or kick them for what they'd said? Because I'm sure that's what they wanted you to do.
Yeah. It was you could either react or respond, and I didn't. I suppose it's just something that you have to gain through experience. You know, that I knew if I reacted the wrong way, that ultimately I would have felt good doing it, but ultimately it would have been detrimental to the team. We could have been beaten if I got sent off. So I'm glad I made the right choice and went the right direction.
Have you spoke to that person since, the person that said that?
Have I?
Or have you seen them? Have you played against them?
I've played against them, yeah. Have I spoke to him? No.
If he's listening, or if you did get a chance to speak to him, I know you said in the late that you felt maybe he didn't mean it, but still a horrific thing to say to someone.
Yeah, I wouldn't go near. As I've said, I would certainly have a few words with my man, and it's a part of the game that I enjoy. You know, but there's certain things you don't go near, and certainly bereavement, and you know, any kind of the equalities. You know, certainly racism is something I'd never go near either.
Why have you decided not to reveal who that person was?
Because I believe that person made a mistake.
They made a choice, and that choice was wrong.
Yeah, and it does nothing for me to say who they are.
Philly, tell me about the redemptive power of sport and the role it's played in your life. Clearly, you've won so many titles, and you've been a superstar for Dublin. You've been an all-star. You've done everything you can do on a sports field. But one of the great lines in the bio for the book is the redemptive power of sport and the role it's played in your life. Yeah, sport for me is everything, and it's, you know, it started off, as I said, kicking the ball, and now it's to helping people. So that's how much for me, I always wanted to put the blue jersey on. I wanted to play for Dublin, and you know, it comes back to the same thing of saying about, you know, you have certain goals in life, and then when you achieve them goals, what's next? And you don't know what you're going to do from year to year. But for me, sport has given me everything, like, you know, and that's, you know, I get asked the question, you know, you've won this amount, how do you motivate yourself all the time? Because it's simple. It's given me everything. Look what I've got today from it, like, you know. So I'm very grateful for it, and I know it's not going to be there forever. Now, I'm not sure how many photos are in the book. I know you've won 5 All-Ireland titles, but 5 photos of you on someone's shoulders in front of Hill 16 with the Sam Maguire in the air, and you slag yourself in the information about the photo, saying that you may have done so many things on the gap pitch differently, but your celebration pose is the same all the time. But you've won so much, or why not? Yeah. Well, it's the same in terms of winning the Sam Maguire. I get on the lad's shoulders and I lift the cup up to the hill. I love it. I think it's just something that I like doing, and
Funnily enough, I keep hitting the lads at the cup in the head on the way back down.
We spoke to Brian Fenton and asked him, I think it was the 2014 All-Ireland semi-final against Donegal. He was a fan on Hill 16. 2015 against Kerry, he's the man of the match and he's lifting Sam Maguire in front of Hill 16. He said the moment when you're actually in front of the hill, and he said, I feel sorry for the rest of Croke Park because they don't get to see Sam. We go straight to the hill.
Yeah.
What's that like for you? Are there people on the hill you know? Do you go to the family somewhere else in the stadium? The moment when you win in All Ireland, what's the kind of the scenario you're in? Where do you go to look, and do you remember any of it?
I would go straight to the Hogan stand to see where my family is first. That's where I look, and there's family section obviously. And then when we go over to the hill, there's too many people to even focus in on anybody. Like you're just celebrating, like, you know. So obviously that's it's you know, when you see in the final this year, you could see there was probably 41 Mayo fans, and that makes it a little bit more special going up the Hill 16. That you know, you were still they're still giving you that amount of support and that amount of noise, even though the other team have more fans there.
Tell me about the two Phillies.
The two Phillies of an alter ego, I'm told. Yeah. So yeah, on the pitch, I would be seen as more aggressive, and some people see that as negative, tenacious. So yeah, and then off the pitch, I'm probably a little bit more positive, and some people mightn't put two and two together, put them together, like, you know. So, but I see what I do on the pitch as positive, because if I get my game doing what I do, and my team wins, I help my team win to do what I'm doing, then essentially my profile gets bumped up. My profile gets bumped up. I can help more people in through my charity. So it's, although a lot of people think of like, even I've played you know, interdivisional games, and I've had people say to me, you know, Jesus, you're actually alright. You know, I've played international rules, and I've had people come up to me and say, you know, you're not bad. So
the phrase "anything to win" comes to mind, and you're a player who would do anything to win for either Ballymun Kickham's or for the Dubs. Do you care or listen to anybody who feels that doing anything to win is wrong? There was a debate recently about, I can't remember watching what match it was, about a foul or about something. Clearly the eye gouging and stuff we don't really want, but anything to win, if there's a foul to be made, if there's, you know, a black card to be taken to stop a goal scoring opportunity, or a red card to be taken, if it's going to win on Ireland, you do it. Yeah,
you would, and I don't think anybody, I think the people that are saying that it's wrong and you shouldn't be doing it and all, I guarantee if you put them in that position, they do the same thing. And it's just a part of the game that's never gonna be ironed out. No matter many rules you put in and many cards you can bring into the game, people are gonna do what they can to win the game. That's a fact.
And one man who's helped you win some games is Mr. Pat Gilroy, the new Dublin hurling manager. An interesting appointment. What did you make of it, firstly, when you heard that he was in for the job, and then finally the Dublin County Board, they took their time. I think it was a split vote, but eventually they decided that Pat was the man for the job.
Yeah, it didn't surprise me. Well, you know, obviously the surprising part is that he managed the footballers and he's gone to the hurlers now. But it wouldn't surprise me of the appointment, because when he first got the football job, there wasn't talk of him getting it. Like, he just came out of nowhere and he hadn't really managed much. He'd managed kids teams, but the experience he has through his businesses and the way he manages them to success, I think you can apply that to any team or any sport. Like, so he's got the managerial basics that will put structure within the hurling. So I don't know the hurling setup. I don't know if it needs structure. I don't know if Pat's style suits it, like, you know, but I certainly do think it'll be different to what they've had over the last couple of years. I think he'll need a little bit of time to, like he did with the footballers, you need a bit of time to get used to the lads and the setup and stuff like that. So look, I wish him all the luck. We are all Dubs, like, we want the Dublin hurlers to do well. We know a lot of them, and there's been a crossover of some of them playing for us and them, so we want them to be successful.
Would you believe he used the exact same phrase in a media conference this week, that we're all Dubs,
and
we want all the Dubs to win? So it's nice that you said the same thing. And one of the sticks that would have been used to beat Ger Cunningham a bit was his man management skills, and that a number of players, top players, were not in the panel for reasons we don't really know, whether Ger didn't want him or they didn't want to play for him. But you've spoken and mentioned the word management a few times with Pat, and as a manager you need to manage people, and that's one of Pat Gilroy's skills that you would think was top of the Dublin County Board's list as to why they chose him.
Yeah, again, I'm not sure the ins and outs of the whole setup, but from that point of view, Pat would have that in abundance, you know. So if that's what they're missing, then they've got the right guy there for it.
Philly, finally, tell me about your charity, and again, we're here to talk about your autobiography, The Choice, and you've chosen to set up a charity to help people in the wake of what happened to your brother John. So just tell us about that, where it started from, where it is, and if you maybe use the analogy of the first half, half-time, second half, where you hope to bring it to eventually. Yeah,
so we done a pilot scheme in 2012 for 18 to 24-year-olds to take them off to social welfare, and we got 20 participants, 13 were successful, 7 went on to employment, 6 went on further education. So it was a huge success. And then the following year, the funding was cut. Most social programs were privatised, so we lost the funding for the partners that we had. And so it was back to the drawing board. And the reason why I wanted to set up a charity was because I was meeting people and helping them, sitting down and talking to them, but I wanted to help a much larger audience, and a charity was a way of basically doing that. So we are it's a charity movement at the minute, so we are hoping to look at going into certain communities, starting with Ballymun, and we want to help young adults, and we want to empower them, engage first of all in the community, empower them, and then educate them through educational courses. And the idea between the idea of the name Halftime Talk Charity is that we all have adversity in our lives, and when we come up against adversity, we certainly change the way we think. No different to the way you would be in a football match and you play a first half and you go in at half time and you think it's either a good performance or a bad performance. You reflect at half time and you go out and you try to do better in the second half. So my half-time talk was John Doyne passing away, and I certainly think my second half has been much better because of it, and I want my charity to be that without people having to have something significant in their life happen, you know. So I want people to be more proactive in life instead of being reactive. So I'm very lucky. I have a board of really successful business people, and they've been brilliant in developing the governance and the strategies of the charity. So we wanted to make sure we got that right first of all, and we're hoping that we could run our first course off in early 2018.
Philly, final 2 questions. A lot of this book centres on Ballymun. How would you compare the situation and the scenario in Ballymun now for young people who are John's age of 14 or 15 now, in comparison to then, when I would like to think things are a little bit better now, but there are still drugs, temptations in all areas of Dublin, but in Ballymun it's no different?
Yeah, it's a little bit more hidden now, like, you know, because you could see it a lot more when the flats were there. You know, you'd have addicts on the blocks and under the alleyways and stuff like that. So you could see them around the shops and stuff like that. So Ballymun doesn't have the shopping centre is gone now. So it doesn't have a focal point for addicts to be around. So it's, and certainly for youths, the drugs have kind of changed. You know, it's like it's weed and hash and stuff like that now, and then it becomes they think it's okay to do that, and because it's legalized in the States and stuff like that, you know, they're thinking that it's okay to do this, but they don't realise the effect that it's having on their development in their careers. So they think it's not as dangerous as heroin, but they don't understand that it's going to lead to harder drugs as they go along. But Ballymun, the thing with Ballymun is there's loads of great things going on in the area. You know, it really is. It's buzzing with the community support networks that we have there. But the problem is, one bad thing changes that again. Like, you know, so unfortunately, Ballymun, if it had one bad thing, that would magnify more than 100 good things. You know, so that's the unfortunate thing, and that's what I'm trying to do with my profile. I'm trying to, as I said, champion the area and show people how good it is, and show people how good the area is, and the people in it is good.
Philly, finally, let's finish on John, your brother who passed away in 2012. Lots of photos of you and him in the book. How do you look back on those photos now? I'm sure you had to look through so many of them to pick the ones for the book. How do you look back on those photos now? Is it with sadness, with happiness, a bit of both? And how do you remember him a number of years now after he's died?
Yeah, mixed emotions. I would say a little bit of everything, to be honest. And but ultimately, I'm happy. I'm happy that I can live his legacy. You know, John's name is now. Everybody is talking about John's name. You know, people that buy the books, people that are talking in the media. John's name is more alive than it ever was. Like, you know, and that's essentially what I want to do. I want. This is not about me, because it's not about Philly McMahon, or, you know, because the problem is much bigger than me. Addiction is much bigger than me. So what's important for me is that I'm one of many to try help support people through my brother's legacy. So I want to give something that John possibly didn't have when he was growing up, to other people that are struggling.
Yeah, you opened the first page of the book and there are 2 words. It says "for John," which is really nice. Philly McMahon, the book is called The Choice. It's a fantastic read. It's available in all good bookstores now at the cost of €22.99. So if you're a Dubs fan, if you're from Dublin, if you want to hear about a story that is really inspiring and sad at the same time, go and buy The Choice by Philly McMahon. Philly, thank you so much. Off now to find a new purple suit, some new music, and plans to win a 4th All-Ireland for us Dubs. Isn't that right?
Yeah, well, I've club championship before, so